Welcome to Avalon's Celebrating Recovery Speaker Series. Each week this month, we are chatting to inspiring women to share their story and celebrate their recovery journey. Today, we are excited to introduce our next speaker, Jessica Jeboult. Jessica is the founder of A Sober Girl's Guide, a blog, podcast, and recovery community designed to empower women in sobriety. She is an accomplished writer, motivational speaker, coach, and she is currently working with Avalon to help us reach more women recovering from addiction online. Welcome, Jessica.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
So, can you tell me what life was like before you started your recovery journey?
Yes. So I had a pretty long career in my recovery journey, like the beginning stages. There was a lot of day ones, let's just say. My recovery I was thinking about it for a good 10 years before I actually did anything about it. I was living in LA. I was a full-time DJ at the time. So I was in nightclubs 3 to 4 times a week. And I was paid to party. It was a really fun job. It sounds like a great time, right? It sounds like a really fun, interesting, exciting job, until it's not. It kind of wears off. The glamour, the glitz of it totally wears off, and it becomes just a job. And that's kind of what happened for me. I had worked so hard and I was so focused on getting these things, acquiring these things, living in a certain place in West Hollywood and LA, um, you know, driving the car that I wanted, having the house that I wanted, the furniture, everything, all this surface stuff that we think is gonna like make us look good and hopefully feel good. And it did for a little bit. And then, I guess I was around 30, and I had gotten little nudges along the way of like, hey, maybe drinking isn't for you. Like, maybe you shouldn't do that. You almost got a DUI. Don't hit those people at the bar. You lost your job again. All these little kind of speed bumps along the way. And then I got a drop kick. There was no longer any nudges anymore. It was a full-on drop kick. And my anxiety and depression was just off the charts. It was debilitating. I couldn't go to work. And I was the sole breadwinner. It was just me. I had no family in LA. I had friends, but they were kind of party friends. They were there for the perks of being around me, which means like getting into the club for free and bottle service and all that good fun stuff. But there was no one in my life that I could actually depend on, or like if I was down and out, there was no one that I could really call or rely on. And that was really scary because I couldn't go to work. I was missing work because I was so anxious. I was to the point where I was literally like crawling out of my skin. I thought my body was going to outrun itself. And it's just such a horrible feeling. Your tummy is just turning. You literally feel like you can just jump right out of your skin. And I couldn't even stand still long enough to change a song at work. It was just so horrible. And I used beer to numb that. And I have to say, for a couple months, it did kind of take the edge off, but then it just came back with a vengeance and things just got completely out of control. I was drinking to medicate, and then I was, also got into drugs. Cocaine was definitely my drug of choice. They just went hand in hand, typical LA nightlife culture. Such a cliche. So when I quickly realized that I couldn't work, and if I didn't work, I wasn't making money. And if I wasn't making money, I wasn't able to pay my rent. And let me tell you, rent in LA is not cheap. So I quickly saw, I'm like, okay, this is how people become homeless. You know, this is how I am going to lose all these things that I worked so hard for. But then at the same time, I'm like, oh, like I'm only really doing my job for money. And that is a really brutal place to be. Doing anything for money is just such a limiting, limiting place to be. I didn't love what I was doing anymore, but I had kind of locked myself into this kind of contract where I had to. I had to keep it up. I had to keep working. Um, so I kind of figured out, I went through my life with a fine tooth comb, and I kind of looked at stuff I was doing on a daily basis and if it was anything that I actually enjoyed doing. And most of the time, I was just on autopilot. Like 95% of the things I was doing in my day-to-day life were just because I've done them for years. It wasn't anything like, oh, I'm doing this because I actually enjoy it. Like, I would love to go to the beach. How many times did I actually make it out to the beach? Maybe once a month. So like 1 out of 30 days was like a really amazing, fantastic day. And I felt like I treated myself. So like that right there was not okay with me. And like I even just went a little more granular with it. And I was like, what am I doing on a day-to-day basis that makes me feel excited about my life, that makes me want to get out of bed? And there was really nothing. I know it's really sad to say, but there wasn't a lot keeping me going. And I could see like, okay, that's where, you know, my depression was acting out. That's where this anxiety was coming up. I was getting to a point in my life where I'm like, you know, I thought I would have a partner, or I thought I would be married. Like, I really want to get married. And I was nowhere close to that. I was hanging out with a bunch of drunk people who didn't even know my name, let alone like gonna have a relationship with or get married. Like, not even close. So I had to make some choices and I had to make some changes, and you know, kind of figuring out this equation of my life and adding up these things that I actually enjoyed doing and what I was getting out of that. And just alcohol didn't fit. It didn't fit into the equation of this person that I saw myself as or who I wanted to be in my life. And alcohol just didn't make the cut. So that being said, I knew that alcohol was not supposed to be in the cut in the first place. So for the past like 10 years prior to that, I would be in and out of AA meetings, mainly when I was feeling bad about myself. And I either needed to be comforted or, you know, compare myself to other people's stories and be like, oh, well, I'm not that bad. And then keep going, right? I think a lot of people do that. So I really tried out AA for a good 10 years, in and out of rooms, trying to find my place, mainly because that was the only thing really available at that time. And I found that I'm not that kind of a learner. I'm not motivated or inspired by that kind of environment. I want someone to like a really cool, awesome woman that I admire and that, you know, is an expander for me and a mentor to be like, listen, it's going to be so much better. It's going to be so much brighter and lighter. There is a light at the end of this tunnel. And I needed someone to show me that. And when I couldn't find that, that's when I started A Sober Girl's Guide. The rest is history.
That's amazing.
Thanks.
So you talked about your past. Can you
Yeah.
share when you started A Sober Girl's Guide and getting sober, what did that look like for the last few years?
Yeah, I started so I started A Sober Girl's Guide as just a blog. I didn't want to do it. I'm gonna put that out there. I didn't want to do it. I thought it was so silly and so cliche. Like every other millennial has a blog and just rambles on about, you know, whatever they wanted to talk about. I'm like, oh my God, that is not what I want to do. But I was kind of given a really nice nudge by a friend of mine who was in entertainment, and she's like, you're like the Chelsea Handler of recovery. Like people need that kind of perspective, like, that kind of sassy, very witty, not serious whatsoever. I mean, unless the situation is serious, but kind of like a funnier, edgier approach. So I think I've evolved to like Chelsea Handler and Ellen-ish of recovery. I think we'll go that way, that route. So I started writing this blog. I started writing, and it was to keep myself accountable too, but also just to kind of document my progress and what was working and what wasn't working, and just kind of like little tips and I guess like a roadmap along the way, along my journeys and what I was finding and what I was discovering about myself. And because I was pretty lonely, I was really lonely because I kind of stopped hanging out with all these friends. And when I say friends, I mean people that you got together and drank wine with and, talk crap about other people, just gossiped with. Like, not the most meaningful, deep connection, not gonna lie. So I spent a lot of time alone, and I think it was really good for me. I learned a lot about myself, and through documenting that, I guess people read the blog. Go figure. So through social media and the blog, it kind of got a little traction. Like people related to it. People like saw or heard themselves in my position, in my stories, and kind of used, I guess, the tips and tricks along their journey as well. And then it progressed. It just grew from there. A friend of mine who was reading my blog said, like, they're really good if we know you and if we know your sense of humor. Otherwise, you kind of come off as like a jerk. And I'm like, like, touche, right? Like, blogging is very one-dimensional. It's great, it's quick, fast information, but if you have any kind of personality or kind of wit behind you, it doesn't really translate too well. So she's like, you need to start a podcast. And again, I'm like, oh, good, great, another millennial with a podcast. Like, no. But I did it, and I think that was probably one of my favorite things that I've done, because like I said, I was lonely. The blog was also very lonely. It doesn't really involve a lot of people. It's very isolating. But having the podcast, you get to share that space with someone else and listen to their stories and pay it forward, like get their story out. So it was really cool, really nice to share that kind of camaraderie with other people. And then I went back to school. I think I went back to school before the podcast, but I went back to school. I got a coaching certification, and I've been running group coaching and one-on-one coaching as well, which is so amazing. And I love doing that. In particular, group coaching, it's just really amazing and powerful to see women come together and just, share and heal together, really, essentially. So that, and then just everything has kind of like progressed. I think, the being sober has kind of become a trend almost, which is cool. I'm like super down with it. It is like super cool to be sober. Sober is the new black. So I am 100% supporting that. I'm 100% on board with that. And A Sober Girl's Guide is just going to get bigger and better.
That's so great. I'm just wondering, so with all of that, with your unique recovery journey,
Mm-hmm.
what are the gifts you've received out of recovery?
Oh my God. How long do we have? I think first and foremost, the biggest gift has been my family. I have moved back a year ago, just over a year ago. I moved back to Vancouver, where I'm from LA. And I think it was one of the best decisions I've ever done. So being physically close to my family, but also having that inner peace within myself to then, I don't want to say deal with my family, but to relate to my family and to listen to my family and to not emotionally react to my family, even though it is very, very hard sometimes. But to have compassion for them and to really listen, I think, especially to my mom. Like, your mom, I think there's something with our relationships with our mothers, really kind of understanding and listening to my mom and how, her history and her past kind of helped shape who she has become. And then in turn, how she parents me and my brothers, and like having to deal with, we have a younger brother who is blind, and having to deal with that in our family and family trauma and stuff like that. Meanwhile, she's hasn't even dealt with or even knows about, her trauma of herself. So I think just being able to be compassionate and open to that, and getting closer to my mom, and then in turn the rest of my family, has been the best gift ever.
That's awesome. So if you could go back to your
Mhm.
younger self and tell her one thing, what would that be?
Oh gosh. Stop chasing. Stop chasing everything. And I think this is also part of my nature. I also have to tell myself this, like, today. um, because I'm a doer. Like, I think that I need to make every move first, and I need to follow up with everything to get my way and maybe prove myself and chase things that I think I deserve, but that's not the case. Stop chasing, and know that you're not going to miss out on anything. And everything that is meant to be for you and go to you will find you. You don't need to force it.
You mentioned being a doer, and and I love that, and we at Avalon really love that, and I'd love to
Yeah.
segue into a little bit about what you're doing with Avalon right now. If you can share about that.
Yeah, totally. Oh, it's so exciting. So Avalon has definitely been more in-person resources and meeting based. And I guess in short, I'm here to bring you into 2020. We are getting Avalon online, literally. So what I've kind of done in the with A Sober Girl's Guide, I'm basically going to do the same thing for Avalon. I'm going to help build out a really amazing, robust community online, and what's also going to be an extension of the centers and in-person services. But what I'm really excited about is the state-of-the-art hybrid meetings that we're doing, and then also building off of our centers and making everything just more accessible 24/7. No matter where you are, no matter where your location is, you're going to be able to access peer support and resources, to help you through recovery, whatever stage that is. If you're just kind of dipping your toe in and you want some information, definitely check out blog posts, hit up our online community through Facebook. And then maybe you'll join a meeting. I'm excited to just really facilitate every stage of recovery and just make everything more accessible.
Well, we're really excited that you have joined the Avalon team and our community, and we're so excited to see where this project will bring us and what it will bring to women seeking recovery online. Thank you so much for sharing and allowing us to celebrate your recovery with you. And if anyone wants to find out more about you and your work, where would they go?
I think the website is a great place to start. So sobergirlsguide.com. And there you will find everything. We have a blog, we have links to the podcast, and we even open a new merch store. So we have lots of cool Sober Girl swag. And then we also have a challenge, a 30-day challenge, and some really cool downloadable workbooks, and my favorite, the anxiety workbook, Slay Your Anxiety. I think everyone has that right now. It is one of my favorites, and really helps you to discover yourself.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Jessica, for being here and for sharing your story with us. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.